Hi everyone, it's Ren here. Welcome to my room, guys. I hope you're well today. Today we're going to be talking about uh, what should one do when they discover, when they understand, when they appreciate, when it dawns on them that they are INFJ. But before we move on to this hopefully very interesting topic, which shall remain mysterious until I've developed a little bit more of my thought, let me remind you that I have written 2 books in the last year: The Ecstatic Soul, the reference book for deep thinkers on the INFJ personality. It's an exploration of the INFJ personality, and The Infinite Castle, my new novel, which is existential, Camusian, Kafkaesque, and INFJ to the core. At least this is how I think about it. Both less than $10, all the links below. Amazon. Any questions, you shoot, don't hesitate, and I will answer you. Let's imagine that you're in a situation where you come to an understanding that you're most likely an INFJ. The question, what should one do, is an interesting question, because I think it casts light on certain aspects of what personality models can bring and what they cannot bring to the life of an individual. It's also a question that casts light on the motivations that people like yourself, like myself, like others have for exploring personality theories in the first place and taking it seriously, not just taking a test and then moving on. We both know that a lot of people do that. But there's also a significant minority that ends up researching it further, ends up consuming my content, consuming lots of other content on personality related topics, different models, and so on and so forth. What are the core motivations here? This is all linked, I think, to the question of what should one do once one has pinned down their type. In this particular instance, in this particular video, I'll be focusing on the INFJ type because it's the type that I'm a so-called expert on, but really that applies to any other type, and hopefully this video will be useful to people from, who identify with other types. The question of motivation is really perhaps where we should begin, because I think that, we've all asked ourselves at one point or another, we've gotten into this slightly more reflective mode where we ask ourselves, why am I taking this so seriously? I have friends in the outside world, I have family, I have a job, I have events that I could attend. Or if I'm really more introverted, I have books, fiction, whatever, nonfiction, politics, philosophy, whatever you're into. There's films, there's so much to do, there's video games, for those among us who enjoy that. Why do we take the question of personality so seriously? Some people on the outside sometimes will say that because we have, us people who have this very keen, pointed interest, they will say that we have an unhealthy fixation on our ego of some kind. We're a bit self-absorbed. We like to think about ourselves and how unique we are, or if it is not about how unique we are, at least it is, how complex we are, what we're really made of, and that this fixation is strange and unusual and not altogether healthy. And this particular critique, I think, can appear appealing at first sight and cause us to actually ask ourselves, could they be right? Could it be that? But if we start thinking about the core motivations, I think that we'll always inevitably find that the critique in question that refers to self-absorption is actually, it's not that it's wrong, but it's a bit shallow. It doesn't actually get to the deep stuff. Because fundamentally, the point I want to make is that the deep reason, the deep motivation, the deep source of this motivation has to be has to come from a particular intention, has to come from a particular desire, which is existential in its core basis. And you know that the Ecstatic Soul is called Jungian Existentialism. So if you haven't got the book yet, you might get some insights from it. There's an existential need, and an existential need comes before the ego. An existential need is something that is pre-conscious. So the ego being the conscious entity par excellence, an existential need comes before that. And I think the existential need is really to figure out what to do with our lives, what to do with ourselves. It may not be a need that we consciously phrase to ourselves, partly because it's hard to phrase it to ourselves insofar as its origin is pre-conscious. As with the ego, as with the language that we use, the sentences that we use to describe ourselves, others, our situation in life, these are all, broadly speaking, under the mastery of the conscious domain. Anything that is existential can be written about, but its goal is always going to be try to get at what's behind the conscious layers, the deep sources, the deep motivations that lie underneath. And that's why, in fact, for any of you who try to read Heidegger or Sartre or Kierkegaard or maybe some Nietzsche, the deep existential philosophers, some of those philosophers appear to be speaking a strange language, Heidegger being the best example of this. But it's not because they are trying to be as obscurantist as they can get away with. It's because they're trying to express pre-conscious thoughts or pre-conscious motivations, existential constitution of the human being. So they're trying to get at something for which there is no language as provided within the conscious realm, which is why they have to come up with their new words. And their attempts are never going to be completely successful, and they're going to be descriptive to a large extent, but that is generally their goal, and that is the justification of their goal. So the source here, this existential need that we have to explore our personality, I think comes from this idea that we are in the world, we have to do something with ourselves, because being in the world is kind of scary, because being in the world is something that to a large extent we've had no choice over. We didn't choose to be born in a certain place, of a certain race, of certain family background, economic background, whatever it might be. There's an arbitrariness to our life conditions. In the same way, there's an arbitrariness to our constitution in terms of our personality. I didn't decide to be born the way I am. Any of you who are watching this video, you didn't decide. You are the way you are. And I think that this preoccupation with having been, Heidegger would use the word thrownness. We didn't choose. We were thrown into the world with this constitution, both external and internal. And we need to do something with ourselves. I mean, Jordan Peterson appeals a lot to this idea. I think that to some extent he provides, apart from the good insights, he provides also a fix that I think is too quick and too easy. And I'll explain why very shortly, because it bears directly on the question. But Peterson appeals to this idea that we have to do something with our lives, and it speaks to people a lot because it, I think, resonates with this pre-conscious existential need that is often ignored by contemporary society, where there seems to be something along the lines of, if you find a job where you can earn enough money so that you can consume a lot of stuff with all these different kinds of options, you'll be fine. That's freedom. That's all we need, comfort. But it passes this existential need by, in a way. Peterson, in some sense, offers to counteract that, and I think that the exploration of personality does not stem from self-absorption. It stems from an attempt to find a response to that need as well. And I think that the response that it offers, in potential in any case, is more profound and more useful than even Peterson's responses or offered solutions. Now, okay, so why is that the case? You're an INFJ. What should you do? If we agree that this is something that is ultimately, what matters. Because once you figure out more or less, okay, that's what I am, then okay, you've gotten to a better understanding of yourself. Is that enough? Are you just moving on, or are you? Usually people who have an interest in their personality, they don't, once they've discovered, okay, that's my personality type, I'm fairly confident of it, they don't stop, they continue discussing. A lot of my audience, fairly confident of their type, they're still here. So why are they still here? If it was just to have found out about their personality type, they would no longer be here. There are probably some people who are like, okay, yeah, that's my personality type, that's fine, I got it. If anyone asks me in the future, I'll tell them. But there's a lot of people who see the personality as a continuing project, as a life project. It's why they're still here. And they see their personality as a life project because they see themselves, their existential core, as a life project. And that's, again, a very Heideggerian notion, is that what should I do? It's not just what should I do right now, but what should I do tomorrow? What should I do next week? What should I do next month, next year, for my entire life? What is a good life for an INFJ? Which almost leads us into the realm of ethics. But that's really, ultimately, I think, what those models help us address. But here is where things can become a little tricky, I think. This deep craving for getting to an understanding of how one should lead one's life with the help of an instrumental understanding of their personality. Now, that's very good, I think, because living a good life and leading a good life without knowing who you are in a deep sense is going to be difficult. It's going to be exposed to inauthenticity. So if you have the advantage of more authenticity through getting to a deeper understanding of who you are, then the question becomes, what's the next step once I know my type? And I think that's where we get to a stage where there are different options, and I don't think the options are all equally good. One option that is very popular, it's perhaps the most popular option on the internet, is an option that is also connected to the Peterson approach. Is the people would find fellow INFJs online. We know some names. I guess I am one of them, and it's quite likely that there are people who watch me for this reason. I think there's someone called Wednesdays that is quite popular as well, and there's a Joyce Meng, and there's a lot of other INFJs. Now, this not ideal option, as far as I see it, is that some of these channels they will offer to go beyond just identifying your type and giving an insight into what should one do, what is good for one to do as an INFJ. But there's something about, a lot of the time, there's something about these resources, these channels, that is quite directive in the sense of, that's what you should do. And people find comfort in that, in the same way that they find comfort in Peterson's talks and videos and books. These are the rules. That's what you should do. That's how you will accomplish yourself. It's almost, in a sense, getting to an understanding of, your type. And once you know your type, you can also know what rules you should follow as a person of this type to lead a good life. And maybe the rules are not the same for all types, but within a type they are the same, and they're externally supplied. Follow them, and you'll live well. You'll be happy. You'll be good. You'll be respectable. You'll be everything. What is the main problem with this? Well, the main problem with this is that these rules come from outside. They don't come from within you. And I think in the first place, they're going to be very appealing, because devising your own rules and devising your own path in life, your own priorities, it's demanding. It's very difficult to do. It asks a lot of someone, and it requires discipline and a lot of introspection, a lot of painful honesty toward oneself. if the rules come from outside, not saying it's easy, and a lot of people don't even get to that point. It's almost similar a little bit to what Kierkegaard calls being in an ethical mode of existence. It's the second highest mode of existence. The lowest is the aesthetic. It's just you respond to stimuli, you don't ever enter into reflective modes. The ethical mode is a higher mode. But the highest mode, Kierkegaard calls it the religious mode of existence, but we could also call it spiritual, if people are uncomfortable with calling it religious. It's not religious necessarily in the sense that you, you're a Christian or, a Muslim or anything. It's more, you're almost directly in contact with your calling and you follow your calling, even if it should seem paradoxical to other people. I think a system of personality that allows people to really get to the deepest points in answering the question, how should I live? Now that I know I'm an INFJ or an INTP or an ISFJ or whatever, is really to allow people to give them the tools to do the deepest introspection by themselves, so that they can actually devise their own rules. And if they're not rules, that's fine. Some people don't want rules. Some people are less rigid. They like norms. They like intuitions. They like ideas of a calling. Just basically giving you a vocabulary so that you can actually come up with your own solutions by yourself, instead of them being supplied from outside. Because ultimately, when an unconscious or pre-conscious existential need manifests itself, it's always coming from deep within you. In order for this need to be met, you can understand that it can never completely be met by applying something that comes from outside, no matter how appealing it seems to be at first. So you are the solution to your own problems or your own challenges that you identify from within yourself. That's how you come to see your life as a task, and as a good life being a life that seeks to address these challenges and to pursue a particular calling. The channels and the books that tell you, if you're an INFJ, then this is what you have to do, they're skipping a step, and it's an important step, because in some sense they're negating the very particular hue of INFJ that you are, as an expression of a deeper idea, which is the particular kind of person that you are, unlike anyone else. So for this reason, I think that the most reliable sources, the sources that are the most worth your time in personality discussions, are the sources that, yes, tell you, if you're an INFJ, that's good, you got into a better understanding of yourself. But now we are going to be trying to give you some critical, intuitive tools so that you get to a sense of the particular kind of INFJ you are, so that you can be the leader of your own life, and how you lead your life is ultimately your authentic responsibility. This kind of material, I think, is the best material and the one that will be the most fulfilling in the end. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this. I got a little bit philosophical today. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday, guys. And don't forget, you can also support me on Patreon. That would be very appreciated. Always need support. Always appreciate your kind support. Bye-bye.